So anyway, I kept waiting for somebody else to file, and I kept urging other people to file for multiple other offices that, you know, are going begging in the county and beyond. And I thought, well, you know, I'm talking this talk, it's time to walk it. So I filed, and I think, I can't speak for him, but I think Adam went through the same kind of process. So we're both in the race now. And as I say, we're both running for democratic values and democratic progress. I kind of regard this race as, for me at least, the opening of maybe a 7 or a 9-year project, depending on how things go, simply because it's an R+28 district right now. And it's a little hard to change hearts and minds without the use of other tools. Anyway, as I say, I've been a lifelong Democrat. I come from a long line of Democrats, in folks who never used the word Republican without another adjective preceding the word Republican. Grandparents, great-grandparents lost their family farm due to a $50 mortgage debt. And my parents were Kennedy Democrats. I went clean for Gene McCarthy, and so on. I had a 30+ year in the U.S. Army, retired as a colonel, was a physician in the Army. I joined the Army to beat the draft in 1968, and it worked. I was a physician, I was a teacher, and retired, and now I farm a little tiny 80-acre place in Azalea, Oregon. Anyway, some of you have met me before in some previous conversations. I'm happy to entertain your questions. So thank you.
All right. Anybody have questions? Well, I do. Tell me a little bit more about the long-term project.
Well,
How do you see it?
Yeah, so I figure win or lose, there's another battle coming up in 2 more years, and in 4 years, and in 6 years, and in 8 years. In 9 years, I'll be 84, and I might be ready to retire. But by then, I hope that we all, everybody on this call, and everybody in CD2, and everybody in Oregon, has shifted the battlefield, has won the battlefield, and that we can have, you know, the entire Oregon delegation be Democrats. That's what I want. So that's why it's I regard it not as a one-shot deal, but as a long-term project for me and everybody else.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else? Questions of Joe? Isabel?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Great. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for showing up and talking to us. My question for you is, out of the CD2 district, what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that you would like to address should you be elected?
Well, I think the biggest thing probably is, you know, the rural city divide. Most of the geography, of course, is rural. A lot of people live in cities, but even those folks are, you know, at heart, rural folks. And rural folks, I think, feel neglected, are neglected. And pardon me. And I think that, you know, all kinds of things impact them, from agriculture to infrastructure policies, energy policies, and so on. And those rural issues are actually reflect democratic and progressive values. They're often not framed that way, but I think that, well, and you know, you guys are hosting Jane Klebb at the Roosevelt Kennedy dinner, and she argues in her book that, you know, rural values are American values, and Democrats need to engage rural folks and honor them and convince them that, you know, our values are theirs. That's my answer. Somebody else has a hand up too. Did I answer your question before we go on?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Nona, go ahead.
Hi, this is Nona, and I have a maybe an observation and a question for you. When I was talking to some people in Eastern Oregon, they were talking about, they were Republicans, they were talking about Greg Walden, and the very important thing that the woman said to me was, he doesn't represent us anymore. Well, and I think that's really important. I think Cliff Bentz did the same thing. He went to Washington and he just started doing whatever. And he's not listening to the people. Can you be talking and listening to the people?
You know, I think that at this point of the campaign, I'm at least in 90-10, 90% listening, 10% talking mode. So yes, that's really, really what I want to do. It's curious that somebody might think that Bentz has turned already, because it's just been a short period of time, but I think it's probably true that his votes have not been in the interests of the people of Oregon or the values he says he wants to represent. You know, his vote against veterans, eligibility for care for exposure to the toxic burn pits, against the Violence Against Women's Act, against the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, that he then turned around and claimed and lauded some of the money that was coming to Oregon from that bill that he voted against. And I think ditto the education funds that he voted against. Now, I haven't heard him claiming credit for that, but he voted against it. And as you say, he doesn't represent the interests of, and I don't think the values either, of the people of Oregon. What I think.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We have a little more time. I'll just jump in again with another question. How are you going to outreach to the rest of Oregon? I mean, the CD2, because it's huge. So what are your campaign plans? Tell us a little bit more about, you know, whether you've got some cabinet already or what your plans are to get out there and listen to the rest of the folks.
Well, thank goodness for Zoom.
Yes.
And thank goodness for people's acclamation to Zoom, because I have multiple meetings with Democratic parties in Oregon. What I haven't arranged is very many meetings with other groups. But I'm going to be making at least 2 road trips before May 17th, and then multiple, depending on what happens between Adam and myself. And then I would do more road trips after that. And it's for me, well, it's for anybody making the loop, no matter where they start, it's the same 1,300 miles or so, plus side trips, depending on fishing conditions. But I'm going to make those big loops. I'm going to meet with Democrats. I'm also going to meet with various civic groups. I'm going to emphasize trying to go to Veterans of Foreign Wars and American Legion stations, because, you know, as a 3 decades plus veteran, I got a little bit of cred with those folks. Now, with VFW, I am not a combat veteran, so I got to be invited in. You know, like vampires, got to be invited in. But I think that they'll welcome me. I'm sure they'll welcome me, and I will love to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your humor, Joe. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Rose. Sorry. Right, there you are.
Hi, I wanted to know if you had any thing to say about how you're going to fund your campaign. Are you looking for large donors, small donors, those issues?
I am looking for money. Early on, I said, I'm just going to self-fund. And some very wise people told me I was an idiot. They're not the first ones to make the observation. But yeah, I'm looking for small donors. I'm looking for large donors. I'm not looking for any PAC funds. And you know what? They're not looking for me either. So I would appreciate all the funding I can get. It's on my website. The Act Blue link is there. And my dog is on there, and you can boop his nose. And let's see what else. Yeah, I'm looking for money. I'm also, asking people to help spread the word on social media. I am a social media nebbish, but if people can spread information about the campaign for me on Facebook and Twitter and Insta, and we're going to have a YouTube channel. So if people just spread the word, I'll be grateful. At the neighborhood leaders meeting yesterday evening, David asked, be sure that, you just go ahead and send your message about neighborhood leaders and community leaders to 2 other good Democrats or their friends. And boy, if everybody who supports me in the campaign does that, or does that for Adam, then, we'll be golden. So asking for money, asking for votes, asking for volunteer support in all kinds of ways. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Adam, tell us your elevator speech about your candidacy, and then tell us more about your campaign too, please.
No problem. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, everybody, for being so welcoming. Thank you, Joe. Joe called me right away. You've been super kind. It's been really nice. Awesome. So I appreciate that from everybody. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'll tell you about my life. I'll try to make it quick because it's been 40 years. But I'm not your poster boy candidate. That's for sure. I'm definitely not a college graduate. I don't have a law degree. I've never served in the service. And I've done time in jail, and I've been homeless, and I've had tons of friends that have struggled and died with addiction. So I'm more a person that's lived the hard knocks life. So why would I wouldn't change any of that, because this is why I'm running. I remember the first time when I got in trouble. Well, let me start from the beginning. I started in Chicago. I grew up. I had 3 brothers and sisters, and 1 brother, 2 sisters. And my parents had a restaurant business. And by the time I was 12, they were going bankrupt. Times were getting hard, and school wasn't doing so good for me. I did really well at school in the beginning. I excelled. I skipped 1st grade. And then by 5th grade, things weren't going so good. I started to downgrade, lose enthusiasm in the education programs. I was bored, honestly. And I didn't feel like it was working for me. So I even dropped out of high school. I went back to college a little bit later when I was in Omaha, when I was having my kids. But so I moved to Vermont after high school. And I went out to Vermont. I got my own small little business. It was a catering service because my family in the restaurant business. All my family worked in the restaurant business, my sisters. So we know about service. I mean, that's what we do. We serve people all day long. And I still do it. People come over to my house and go, okay, hors d'oeuvres, let's do it. Bring every platter out to them, because I just feel like that's what I like to do. Then we started the catering business. It fell down during the big 2000 depression and all that. And 2008, I think, was when I was done with that. In 2010, I met my wife. I moved out to where her family was in Nebraska. I had my first kid, Zane. And a couple years after that, I moved out to Oregon. And after my second daughter was born, I moved out to Oregon so we could all move out here during the big gold rush marijuana scene. And I came out here because both my sisters were living here. One was living in Ashland, the other one was living in Medford. I did forget to say, a long, long time ago, my family took a road trip out to Oregon when I was like 10. And at that very moment, I told my family I wanted to move to Oregon. And when I was 17, I actually left home and hitchhiked all the way out to Oregon. And I came out here and I stayed out here to live for a little while. And since then, I have been in Oregon. I came out here, did some of the farm work here and there. I was also doing construction work, just doing subcontracting and independent contracting. And then the coronavirus hit. And I've been not working very much since then, trying my best to use a little bit of money that I had, doing a little bit of investing. I am into some technology stuff. I'm not scared of technology. I was a big Bernie guy. And I like that whole crowd and a lot of the people. I'm still friends with everybody and I love a lot of the ideas. But Andrew Yang has another group of a lot of people that I also talk to, and I like a lot of their ideas. I like a lot of the Democratic Party ideas, the people that ran for president. Marianne Williamson was just at a meeting the other night for us because we're bringing Medicare for all back. We're bringing it back, and we're talking about national Medicare for all, not the state by state, national Medicare for all. And we're going to push hard to get it. All the squads in on it. We've all been receiving messages. We're doing meetings. I've been on Zoom meetings all day today. So we are going to make it happen. It's just going to be a long fight. It's going to be a very long fight. And this district is going to be a very long fight. I agree, Joe. It's going to be a long fight. To think that me or Joe could win right now is kind of delusional. But it's not impossible. Anything can happen, okay? AOC came out of nowhere and she did it. Anybody can do it. But I think it's going to be a long fight. So mobilizing the schools around here, getting the younger generation involved, getting them involved in over things like canceling student debt, Medicare for all. And further down the road, we need to go as far as nationalizing the fossil fuel industry. We need to change this country for real progressive change. We can't sit back and just let it burn. So we have to fight. But we also have another problem, and that's half the country doesn't agree with us. Half the country labels some of our ideas as socialist, which isn't true. It's not socialism. You know, I'm learning more and more about it all, you know, democratic socialism and how it all really works. And that's what we need, more social policies. We need things that bring up the bottom. We need the prison industrial complex. We need to attack that full speed head on. We need to stop this racist institution that is basically just carrying on slavery. It's disgusting and inhumane what happens inside of there, and I've witnessed it and seen it. And I will never stop fighting for those people that are just being tormented. We need to, the homeless, it's terrible. I can't believe there's so many homeless people in Oregon. We can fix that very easily, but we just have to get the right people to push the legislation through. We have to make sure that we keep on fighting and push it through. So my goal is to do what I do. And for the last 5 years, I've opened up some independent media. We've been interviewing candidates around the country, and they're all progressives and social type candidates. You know, some of them are Andrew Yang, some of them are Bernie Sanders, some of them are more Democratic Party Biden, but they're all agreeing on the ones we interview are all agreeing on the policy, the progressive social policy that we're trying to push to change the country for the better. So in the next 10 years, we can get this district, a large crowd in this district going, and maybe it won't be Joe, maybe it won't be me, maybe it'll be somebody else, but that crowd will be there and the movement will be there for them to step in and take the place. Because, you know, I'm not a poster boy candidate, but I've experienced it all, not all of it, but a lot of it. I'm still a white dude. I still have privilege. I recognize my privilege. I recognize that I hitchhiked in Alabama, and if I was black, I couldn't have done that. I recognize that I only did a short stint in jail because I was white. And like the DA told me that, the prosecutors told me that, the police told me that, everybody told me that. And there was a poor gentleman upstairs doing like 20 years. My charges were simple possession charges. Okay. So they were nothing that is violent or mean. And I've never done anything like that. I believe in love. I have a soul that's generated by love, and I have a heart full of grace. But I don't have a college education. But one of the things that's lacking in this system, we've had a lot more black people coming in. We got some people, we might have a black woman senator soon, and that will be so great, Morgan Harper. So look her up if you don't know about her, because she's great. But what we don't have is we don't have what one demographic that hasn't gone up is the uneducated or the very, very unwealthy, the very, very poor. That demographic still is staying the same because it's just people think you need to have somebody with a good education or that talks right to make the right policies pass. However, since the 60s, we've been going backwards, and 98% of the Congress is educated. So I'm here because I just got to keep fighting, because there's, since I was a little kid, there's been something in the side of my back of my brain that's been meh, 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 meh. Something's wrong. This isn't right. None of it. And I thought we could run away. I had dreamed of homesteading when I was in my 20s, but you can't run away from the earth because it's the only planet we have. So we have no choice but to fight. I have 2 kids I'm fighting for, and everybody else I'm fighting for. Most off, I think I fight for the planet. But I'm here, and I hope you can vote for me eventually.
Adam, thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your sense of humor too. Does anybody have any questions? I guess I'll just ask you the same one. Do you have a plan, like a cabinet, campaign cabinet, and a plan to get over into the rest of the district to share your
So
views?
the plan, starting small, the plan
Yep.
would be to mobilize social media, TikTok, and get the funding together. So that's very important. If I can use TikTok and Twitter and Facebook, which I'm pretty familiar with, and I've already got some small organizations, not to mention a lot of the candidates are running all over the country. If we can mobilize fundraising, then we can get to these other people. Driving around the Oregon 2 district to go visit everybody seems like kind of a tough route to go. This is a huge district. Go see 1-2 people a day, maybe 10, 20. But
Yeah.
on social media, we can hit huge groups through simple memes or short videos, ads, and it can be done. But we need to also think about the fact that we have to reach across the aisle here, because this is one of the reddest districts in the country. Okay, so we have to do some compromising, which is a kind of a bad word, but it has to be done in a certain way. So we have to reach over to these people that voted for Trump, because without some of the people that voted for Trump voting for us, I don't think this district's got a long, long way to go. Because you look at the numbers and you got to get some of those people. How do you do it? Through the workers, through the working movement. So we can appease them by not making fun of them, and by not classifying them all with the insurrectionists, because everybody that voted for Trump isn't an insurrectionist, and a lot of them don't even believe that was an insurrection, and you can't hate them for it, but whatever, it was an insurrection by definition. But the thing is, we have to reach to them in the ways that they want to listen to us. So we have to talk to them about how we can give them health care for all. We got to talk to them how we can make sure their minimum wage is going up. And we can make them feel comfortable about it without demonizing them. And it's a long battle, but I think I can do that.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Ellen or Adam?
Hi, Tanya, this is Delphi.
Hi, Delcy, go ahead.
Hi, Adam. And my question is really kind of broad for both Joe and Adam. And you both talked about the long haul. And Adam, you specifically mentioned 10 years. My sense is we don't really have 10 years when it comes to the climate emergency that we're facing. And so I want to hear from you, and then maybe at some point from Joe, about how we can address that, at least in Oregon, whether you win the district or not, because I'm a new grandma and I'm getting another grandchild, and that was really, when my kids were young, yes, it was part of our awareness, but now it's just exponential. We need to do something to address the climate emergency that we're facing now. So I hope that's enough to go on as far as the question goes.
Sure. Do you want me to start?
Go ahead, Adam,
Yep.
and then we'll go to Joe.
Okay, so I would say, gridlock, Congress, our government. It's not easy. That's why we have this division in the Medicare for all, state by state and federal. And it's a battle that makes me want to cry because I see my friends fighting. But the thing is, we have to continually try to do it the way of voting and the democratic way, while we also install direct action through these organizations like Extinction Rebellion. This is the only way we're going to be able to do it. We are dying here and we have to fight. Now, I'm not talking about violence, of course not, because that's the opposite of what we want and that will cause problems. But I am talking about direct action, the direct action like Extinction Rebellion does. And we need more of it. We need to make sure that we don't make any more pipelines. We cannot put any more pipelines on the ground. And the more direct action we have, the more they will listen to us.
Thank you. Joe, go ahead. What do you think about the climate crisis? You're muted. There you go.
Well, Adam is exactly right. It is an existential crisis. We're dying here. The climate crisis wars and migrations and deaths have already begun. It's going to get worse, even if we stopped emitting carbon now. You know, the coming decades are going to suck really bad. Now, rural people are going to be the bleeding edge among people who are suffering from it. That's certainly true in the global South right now. It's true in the prairie states. It's true, you know, in Klamath County. You know, their aquifers down. You know, they're, you know, as somebody told me yesterday, they're sucking out the last of the 10,000-year-old water from their wells. It's a crisis, and we have to do something. And rural people are not just suffering most from it, but they maybe have the most to gain from the solutions, because, you know, wind turbines are going to be on mostly rural land. Solar or massive solar arrays will be, some of them city, but a lot of them will be rural. The combination of agroforestry and regenerative agriculture are keys for rural people to thrive from carbon sequestration and carbon mitigation strategies. So it's a good economic sell for rural people. It was rural people who mostly shut down the Keystone Pipeline. It was rural people mostly in Douglas County that stopped the LNG. I don't know if you guys know about this battle. So basically, we were going to have a foreign corporation take land by eminent domain and build a pipeline for natural gas. Natural is a terrible word, methane and other gases, to go across our county, which is a really grand idea, as long as you think that it's okay to, you know, do that to people's property, and you think that gas lines don't leak, and you think that the gas isn't explosive, and you think that our woods aren't flammable, and you think that nobody lives in those woods anyway. So it was local people, it was rural people who defeated that. And I think that environment is a selling, winning issue for rural folks. Thanks.
Thank you. Nona, go ahead. You got a question for Adam? There you go.
Yes. Yes, I do. And actually, it would be a questions along with reaching across to these Republicans who may have a lot in common if you could meet with them, and that would be the effort, I think, to meet. Could you ask them, because they're the ones who are impacted by the climate, and they see it probably more than people who live in the city. So how could you address them about that issue?
Okay, so I've been doing it for a while, right here in this district, on the bus and everywhere I go, and everybody I see that I talk to the people that identify as more right or Republican or even independent, right-leaning, is I have to bring out my spew and talk to them about Teddy Roosevelt, because he was a progressive and he also was the conservation guy. He made all of our parks and stuff, but he was a Republican as well. So as soon as I mentioned Teddy Roosevelt, most of them are like, oh yeah, I love Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm like, great, because those are all the policies I'm running on, Teddy Roosevelt's ideas. And we need to conserve, which true conservative is helping our national parks, growing a garden. My grandma saved buttons. So conservatism is about recycling as well as, well, a lot of the people get confused and they think it's about values, but that's not really what it's about. So I bring out the Teddy Roosevelt spiel, and then we can talk about the earth, because most of them love the earth. They might like hunting or whatever, but they love the forest and they understand that. And they will agree with me once we talk about that. We just have to leave the stuff that we don't agree with out of the conversation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Adam? Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
You seemed pretty sure that you can fix the homeless issue. We don't have enough housing down here, so I'm curious what you think is so easy about dealing with the homeless.
Well, okay. I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's easy, but it can be done for sure. It just has to be pushed. And the thing is, the housing issue, we have these free houses going up all over the place. Colorado, you can look at these other places and you can see it's a simple fix. It is actually a simple fix. Getting it through Congress is hard. Getting it through legislation is the tough battle. But once you get okay to build a village, the village doesn't cost much to build. We could build a village down here in Medford that could house every homeless person in Medford very easily. But the problem is getting the funding for it. The problem is getting the okay for it, because people want to demonize the homeless. They want to call them, they want to say we need to lock them up. They want to build bigger jails like the Medford jail. I was fighting against that Medford jail like tooth and nails. Like that was just the worst idea ever. First of all, they already tried it. They built one and then it went bankrupt and they had to sell it. And now they want to spend millions of dollars on another jail when we could have just built a homeless village. And then through those homeless villages, we rehabilitate all of those people who have mental health. So we need health care for all. We need to address their mental health. We need to give them something to live for. We need to give them jobs. And their addiction is because a lot of them have addictions, because that's why they're homeless. And their addiction is a symptom. Their addiction is a symptom from their mental health because the system isn't working for them. It's very simple if you just put them in a good system. Then they will work, things will get better. A large majority, maybe not everybody. And we always got to consider we're going to have to just house people, and that's just because it's the right thing to do. But a large majority of the homeless can become self-sustaining if we give them the foothold that they need to get their lives on track. It is simple. The hard part is getting it passed.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you stepped up to do this. We all know it's hard and we're here for you. We're here for you.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.